look like a boss.
The following video is mostly intended for humor. I nitpick, make jokes, and generally just have fun pointing out things that don't quite add up. That said, I may make a few actually valid points along the way. I'll leave it to you to decide which is which. Oh, and spoilers! Welcome to the channel, I'm Hayes, I talk movies all day, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about Fast and Furious. And in case you're thinking, wait a minute, didn't you already do this movie? No, that was The Fast and the Furious. This is Fast and Furious, and just so you know, the naming conventions only get more confusing from here. So how this works is I'm going to go through the film and point out all the questionable things that I can find in Fast and Furious. So the movie starts off with the crew robbing an oil truck, and I guess the big thing about this scene is Han is with them. I think this confused a lot of people at the time because Han dies in the previous movie, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. But simple enough explanation, this is set before the events of The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. And since Dom and Letty are back together, we can assume that this is after the events of The Fast and the Furious. However, what I think everyone really wants to know is, did Slapjack manage to pay his rent? I really feel like we need to know if Slapjack is okay, because if we need to set up a GoFundMe or something like that, let us know. But anyway, back to this movie. They're robbing a truck, and at this point, we don't know exactly how long it's been or how many trucks they've robbed since The Fast and the Furious. But after Vince got shot at in The Fast and the Furious, you'd think they'd be turning up with body armor by now. Also, why doesn't the truck driver just stop? Especially with Dom driving out in front of him like that. He's basically signaling he's up to no good. That would actually freeze Letty's hand. Dom died in this scene. I like the opening of this scene, especially as it shows the words downtown Los Angeles just as gang member number 2 jumps through and down the window. Also, I don't know how many things I've seen this guy in, but I swear he plays the exact same character in every one of them. I ain't even mad at it. I'm just wondering, does this mean that the Fast universe is connected to the Breaking Bad universe? The Breaking Fast universe? Anyway, I don't believe Brian could keep up the chase in that suit, and definitely not those shoes. Also, Brian and gang member number 2 died in this scene, or at least were severely injured. I don't know who needs to hear this, but if somebody offers you donuts, the correct answer is always yes. Please, thank you. I don't care if yesterday was your cheat day, so just run an extra 3 miles in it. But whatever, they really need to explain how Brian got into the FBI, because he wasn't exactly what you'd call a good cop. He let one criminal escape, committed a bunch of other crimes in between The Fast and the Furious and Too Fast, Too Furious. Now, to be fair, Agent Bilkins did say they'll wipe his slate clean, but still, what makes them think Brian can be trusted? If anything, maybe they hire him as a consultant on a case-by-case basis, but to employ him? To put him on their payroll? Are you dumb? Okay, so I get that this is to establish Stasiak as the arsehole of the group, but how does she know that David Park is Korean? He could be Irish, English, or just plain old American. I mean, David Park is a pretty non-ethnic specific name. You know, it's actually interesting that they don't show Letty's death, and especially this early in the movie, it makes it even more unexpected. Unlike Han, who definitely had it coming and definitely blew up in that car. Definitely. This is a way of dealing with a tragedy without being in your face about it. It's also really cool and dramatic how they show Dom recreating the events leading up to Letty's death by looking at the time marks on the road. My only question is, how do we even know Dom is right? I mean, sure, he knows about cars and racing, so I don't suppose he's just guessing his way through it, but come on. You ain't Batman. I mean, we don't know how long it's been between Letty's death and this moment, but considering they had a funeral, it's probably at least a few days, maybe even a week. There is no telling how many other cars have driven on that road since. And since the wreckage has been removed, you've at least had police and emergency services driving on that road. Or if the person who killed Letty was smart enough to have the wreckage moved themselves, then they've probably cleaned up any evidence as well. Either way, what exactly are you going by? But that said, one thing we can be sure of is Letty got shot, because it wouldn't make sense for Dom to be recreating the killer pulling a gun if there was no prior confirmation of Letty getting shot. So Letty definitely got shot.
This is Forsyth and evidence. I need Stasiak down here right away to sign some greenies. Hey, Tyler, we got a transfer. You wanna come with me?
That's serious grounds for dismissal. At the very least, taken off the case and suspended without pay. I told you, Brian cannot be trusted.
Maybe you're not the good guy pretending to be a bad guy. Maybe you're the bad guy pretending to be the good guy.
That's what I'm saying though. Anyway, so now we know it's been about 5 years since the events of the Fast and the Furious. Even though everyone looks about 9 years older. I don't know, maybe they need to drink more water or something. But whatever, in those 5 years, criminal Letty and criminal on the run Dom found a way to reunite. But cop turned criminal turned FBI agent Brian couldn't pick up the phone to call Mia. Furthermore, how long has Brian been back in LA? You couldn't swing by for a tuna sandwich? I mean, you basically waited for Mia to be arrested by the arsehole agent on the case you're investigating, which by the way you shouldn't be because there's a clear conflict of interest, just to sneak her out to a diner and be all like, yeah, what I did was wrong, Bro, that is way too little too late. You know, it actually takes a lot of strength and body conditioning to be able to hold a whole human out a window like that and stay breathing calmly. And considering Dom found David Park before Brian did, even though Brian had a head start, I'm thinking the FBI employs the wrong criminal. And can't lie, the way Dom just disappeared after letting David Park go, maybe he is Batman. Hold up, Brian is a known criminal with a history of betraying the cops. He lies to get Mia, a key witness by the way, out of the FBI office. He couldn't even get to David Park before Dom, and now he just assaulted another FBI agent inside the FBI office in front of every staff member there, and all this guy has to say is, you know the difference between a cop and a criminal. Why is Brian getting so many allowances? Man should be done by now.
You are now 1/4 mile from your destination.
Of course. Anyway, this is a really cool race scene. It's thrilling, it's intense, it's just done very, very well. But those people died, right? I mean, those crashes were horrible. Ain't no way they survived. So are those deaths gonna be investigated, or are we just gonna move the story along and pretend like Braga didn't just bring a whole lot of unnecessary heat on himself? Brian's been an incompetent cop since The Fast and the Furious, and now he's wasting FBI resources busting some guy that teased him for losing to Dom. Doesn't matter that it doesn't stick. You just messed up some 19-year-old kid's life just to have an ego. Also, no way this guy's 19. Gotta be at least 29. And didn't they say Dwight was one of the drivers that Braga already picked? Which means Brian is interfering with his own case. Okay, to be fair, Brian did it to open up a spot on the team after losing to Dom. However, there was no guarantee they'd choose him as a replacement. They could have decided to hold another race, or even just go with less drivers. Furthermore, the amounts of suspicion that will cause. One guy gets busted the day after the race for drug possession. This Braga crew clearly do their checks on their drivers, so why aren't they concerned that one guy gets busted for something he doesn't have a record for? Matter of fact, speaking of record checking, I assume the FBI made up some criminal activities to add to Brian's real criminal activities so when Braga runs checks on him. But Braga is supposed to be a big-time drug runner, so elusive no one even knows what he looks like. You're telling me a guy like that doesn't do deeper checks on his recruits? Also, wouldn't those background checks have linked Dom to Letty? Nah, somebody on Braga's team needs to get fired.
Braga's mine. I'm taking the whole house down.
Brian really gonna be that careless? Bossman just said everyone in there would die for Braga, and then Brian just says that in front of the ladies? What makes you think they're not gonna say something?
You remember her face? Cause I don't. Last time I saw it, it was burning.
So Letty got shot and burned up, which means Letty is definitely dead. Also, this seems like a really bad way to smuggle drugs. Why bring people from the USA to Mexico just to drive back to the USA? Wouldn't it have been easier to get drivers from Mexico? Also, why did they need real drivers who would sell their abuelitas? Those tunnels actually look pretty manageable. As long as you're not being a dickhead, I think any reasonably decent enough driver can make it through. Also, if Braga was just gonna kill the drivers after the drop-off, why take the effort to look for top drivers? Wouldn't it be better to use people who are as unnoticeable as possible? It's pretty much why Dom is here. Letty's death did not go unnoticed. Had Braga not used Letty and went with someone with little to no connections, this movie could have been over like 40 minutes ago. Okay, I can accept that Dom just might be Batman, but he's not Superman, come on now. And he's punching a guy with the same side he got shot on, really?
You sure about this?
Yeah. The last place they'll check? Their own impound yard.
That's actually pretty smart thinking. maybe this guy's got some potential after all. Between Roman punching through a car window in Too Fast, Too Furious and now Dom smashing a car window with his elbow, whoever makes car windows in the Breaking Fast universe should be fired. Also, Dom still owes Brian a car since that car wasn't Dom's to give away. Wait, so Mia knows first aid now? All of a sudden? Right when Dom needs medical help but going to a hospital might be too risky? Well, ain't that convenient. Okay, to be fair, it's very possible Mia picks up some basic first aid skills growing up with Dom and all the other delinquents getting into fights and car crashes all the time, so this does actually make sense. Here's the thing though, wouldn't Brian have some basic first aid training too? Being a former cop and a current FBI agent, wouldn't he also know how to clean a bullet wound? So why call Mia? Brian was already right there. I really like this scene, even though I don't think Dom beats Brian. Dom might be bigger, stronger, and possibly Superman and Batman all in one, but Brian can actually fight. He might not be good at much else, but he can actually fight. But what I really like about this scene is that it shows that Letty's death is really Dom's fault. He had a legit ride or die chick, but because he was too much in his own BS ego, she ended up dying instead of riding.
Still put milk and cookies out for Santa Claus?
It was very quiet, but Brian did say yes to that question, and I ain't mad at it. Okay, so they ran the 2 sets of prints Brian got and eventually found that Campos is Braga, but Braga has a criminal record. Now remember when they were all like, we don't even know what he looks like? Did they bother to just search his name? Because I think they could have found this guy a lot sooner. Also, is Phoenix deaf? Braga said run him down, and then he just drives in a straight line nowhere near Dom. Then Giselle, for whatever reason, decides to go stand in front of a moving car. Furthermore, why is Dom saving Giselle? She was totally on board with having him killed and staying with Braga. You really gonna risk your life for that? Nah, let her dumbass get run over. Should learn to look both ways before you cross the road. Of all the reasons Brian should have been taken off the case, this is not it. They were supposed to wait for his confirmation before moving it in on Braga. It was Stasiak that gave the order before Brian confirmed. This screw up was Stasiak's fault. Okay, so we're entering into the final stages of the film. Brian's off the case, Dom is out for revenge. But really, 2 people can fit in one car. This is ridiculous. Also, Giselle is helping Dom now? Let's not forget that Giselle was fully a part of the team that had Letty killed, then tries to kill Dom, Brian, and the other drivers. So what, we're supposed to pretend now that Giselle was somehow just some innocent bystander? Nah, this woman is guilty. This is by far not the first or last movie to do this, but it always seems to me a strange contradiction when you have big time drug runners like Braga go to church. I mean, which part of the Bible says the more drug money you give, the better chance of getting into heaven? And perhaps even worse, the priest just flat out lying to him so he can take the money. Maybe Braga misunderstood the scriptures, but I'm pretty sure the priest didn't. Okay. To be fair, although they don't state this explicitly, it's possible the priest's name is what Giselle gave to Dom to get him to Braga. So, what I want to know is, if a priest lies to one criminal to help 2 other criminals while taking the first criminal's drug money, and you know that wasn't the first time, does the priest have a clear conscience? Or does he spend the rest of his life tormented by his past decisions? Because honestly, maybe they should be telling that story instead. Also, how long has Braga been giving the priest money? Because that church is looking pretty neglected. This priest better not be driving around in a Rolls Royce. Also, Braga said Dom is no hero and Dom agreed, then said that's why Braga is going back to America. And that is exactly like something Batman would do. So yeah, Dom is Batman. I think it's confirmed now. So I've never tried to smuggle a drug smuggler from Mexico to America, but I'd imagine if you're gonna do that, you'd be better off driving in a way that doesn't draw attention to yourself. But hey, I've never tried to smuggle a drug smuggler. By the way, is Fast and Furious also set in the same universe as the A-Team? I'm just wondering why so many shots get fired and nobody gets hit. This is a really cool chase scene though, but here's the thing, there's no way Phoenix would have known Braga would have survived that crash. Matter of fact, I don't believe anybody survived that crash. Braga, Brian, and probably Phoenix too died in this scene.
You are hereby sentenced to serve 25 years to life.
Dom still getting sentenced to prison despite helping to catch Braga is probably the most realistic part of this movie. So the movie ends with the implication that Dom's crew busted him out of the prisoner transporter bus. However, Dom was sentenced to a maximum security prison, so those guards have guns. which means somebody ain't making it to the next movie. Either that, or these guards have worse aim than stormtroopers. But that's what I think of Fast and Furious. What do you think of Fast and Furious? Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.